Hello friends, this is Sumit Ratan and I feel delighted to invite you to attend a full series on understanding and calculating deflection in axially loaded members or bar and its combination. The lecture will comprise of two videos. In the first one I shall demonstrate deflection of statically determinate axially loaded members or bar and its combination. In the second one I shall be dealing with exclusively with deflection of statically indeterminate axially loaded bars or members and its combination. Here I would like to clarify that statically determinate structures are those which can be solved just by applying static equilibrium condition. In contrast, statically indeterminate structures cannot be solved just by applying static equilibrium condition and needs an additional compatibility equation to solve. At last, I would like to admit that my communication ability may not be appropriately refined enough to deliver lecture professionally and the lecture may sometimes seem boring. But one thing I can promise that content-wise you will find it very helpful. So here I will start with the simplest problem and will sequentially enter into more and more complex ones gradually. So let us start enjoying the lecture. So let us now start with our first case study in which we have taken a prismatic bar in which load is applied in the axial direction and the initial length of prismatic bar is L. When we call the bar as prismatic, it means that prismatic means uniform cross-section area. This bar has a uniform cross-section area throughout its length. Now, a structural element is called a bar when the load is applied in the axial direction. So, we'll start with some assumptions. So, we'll start taking the assumptions here. Our first assumption will be that the material of the bar is homogeneous and isotropic. Homogeneous and isotropic. When I call it a homogeneous, it means that the bar has a uniform distribution of the same material throughout its volume. And when I call it isotropic, it means that at any point in the material properties are equal in all the directions. Okay. Now our second assumption will be that the material is elongated such that it lies in the linear elastic region of the stress strain curve. See, I had briefed you that this is the stress strain diagram. Typically for mild steel, let us draw. So it is the linear elastic, then non-linear elastic, then plastic, then comes the strain hardening, and then ultimately failure. So up to the proportional limit, we find that the curve of the stress strain diagram typically in case of mild steel follows the linear elastic curve. So we'll be elongating the material or the prismatic bar such that it lies in the linear elastic region of the stress strain curve. So by virtue of it being in the linear elastic region, Hooke's law can be applied. Hooke's law can be applied. Now what is Hooke's law? Hooke's law is stress is equal to Young's modulus into strain. Let us now define in case of this prismatic bar as to what will be the stress and the strain. So stress will be stress generally denoted by sigma is equal to load applied, that is P, upon the cross section area. Let us take it as 1. Now strain, which is denoted by epsilon, strain is equal to change in length. We can see that the prismatic bar is elongated due to the application of load P along its axis. So the change in length divided by the original length of this prismatic bar is taken as the strain. Let us take it as 2. And let us put 1 and 2 in this Hooke's law equation because we are elongating it such that the Hooke's law it follows. Okay. So as we put these 1 and 2 in this equation, we find that P by A is equal to Young's modulus into del L by L. By rearranging, we'll find that del L is equal to P, L goes here, E comes here, PL upon EA. So this is our change in length quantified now. This is the formula for change in length, okay, of a prismatic bar in which load is applied in the axial direction. Now let us take a slightly complex situation in which we have a combination of two prismatic bars having different lengths, cross-section areas and elastic modulus, and load P1 and P2 being applied at these two positions. Okay, so we'll individually find out what is the change in length of each specimen and we'll add up because it follows a linear relationship of addition. Okay, so first let us find out what will be the change in length of this first element. So let us draw the first element here. As we draw the first element, we find that a load P is acting on it. P1 is acting on it on this side. Okay, so here as we see, since this element applies a load P1 on this one, this element in turn, as per the Newton's third law, will apply a load P1 on this one also. Okay, so we see that a P1 load acts from here and P1 load acts from this side. So it's a compressive. Okay, so P1 is acting from this side also. And we know the properties A1, E1 and L1 is the dimensions and elastic modulus. So by using this formula of change in length, we can calculate the change in length of the first element, del L1, which is equal to P1 and L1 upon E1 into A1, isn't it? Since it is a compressive force, this will have a minus sign. So change in length will be negative. So this is our change in length for the first element or the first prismatic bar. Let us. Okay, now we'll take the second prismatic bar. Okay, so let us draw it. As we draw the second prismatic bar, we find that the total load acting on this bar will be P2 plus P1, okay, which is equal to P1 plus P2, and reaction from this side also will be, from this wall reaction will be P1 plus P2. So again using the same formula, we can calculate the change in length of the second element, which is equal to, now since again it is a compressive force, so it will again contract, so minus sign will be there. In place of load we'll write P1 plus P2, L2 because the length is L2 upon A2 into E2. Okay, so this is the change in length of the second prismatic bar, which is in series with the first one. So now what is the total change in length? So total change in length follows a linear addition relationship, which is equal to del L1 plus del L2, which is equal to, if we take minus outside, it will be P1 L1 by A1 E1 plus P1 plus P2 L2 upon A2 E2. So this is the total change in length or compression due to the applied load conditions. Okay. Now it's time to generalize. Okay, since it follows a linear addition relationship, it's time to generalize and find out what will be the change in length when complex loading conditions apply on a prismatic bars lined in series. So in general, del L total for a combination of prismatic bars in series del T will be equal to del L1 plus del L2 plus del L3 plus dot 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 del Ln. Okay, we can generalize like this. If we use a little mathematics, we can just write it like this, that del Lt is equal to Pi Li by Ai Ei, and we'll use this addition sign from I is equal to 1 to n. So this is how we can find out the change in length of prismatic bars combined in series and load applied on it in the axial direction. Thank you. Now let us take two special cases which can be solved using the same concept. The first one that we have taken is a uniformly varying cross-section area and varying axial force. Okay, so here we have this bar in which the cross-section area also is varying and the loading condition also is varying. So what shall we do in this case? As we already know, using the Hooke's law that we have found is del L change in length is equal to PL upon AE. Okay, now for this condition actually, let us, since it is not a prismatic bar, we cannot apply this formula directly. Okay, so for this we'll have to take a small element that is of width dx. Okay, and let us find the deflection or deformation in this small element. Okay, so the deformation in this small element, that is d delta, which will be equal to px, because loading is also varying. Okay, it depends on x, so p is depending upon x. Okay, so px is the load, and what is the length of this element? This is dx. Area of cross section also is varying, so it will be ax, but E, that is the Young's modulus, remains constant throughout the material, so we'll take E. Okay, now if we know that what is the variation pattern of the loading and that of the cross section area, we can just integrate it. Px dx upon ax into E, and it can be integrated from 0 to L, because this length of the bar that is of varying cross section is L, so 0 to L. Okay, if we know the variation pattern of loading and area of cross section area, we can easily integrate and find out the total length or change in length. Okay, this is del L. Let us take another example in which let us find out the deformation in a prismatic bar due to its self weight. And here we have this condition given that the weight density of the material is gamma. We will again use the same formula. This is our second example. Second example in which a uniform cross-section area bar, that is a prismatic bar, is hanging, and we have to find the deformation that is caused in the bar due to its self-weight. So as we have already learned this formula, we will again repeat it. Change in length is equal to load acting into length of the bar divided by area of cross section into Young's modulus. Okay, so since here loading will vary, because see, if we consider this cross section, the load will be acting because of the material in this area. Okay, if we consider here, we see that on the weight of the total bar is acting at this area, so the load will vary. Actually here this load will vary. Okay, so load is finding a variation. L is okay, area of cross section remains constant because we have taken a prismatic bar and this is a property of the material. Now we'll again take a elementary volume from here and consider the length of the volume as dx. Okay, now let us calculate the elementary change in length of this element dx. That will be equal to d of del L means elementary change in length in the small element dx, which is equal to loading, that is px, load or the weight of the bar hanging below it, into length of the element, this is dx only, and area of cross section anyway remains constant, and E also remains constant. Okay, now what is the loading? Okay, so loading is actually the weight of the bar hanging below it. This much weight is acting on this element of the bar. Okay, so it will be equal to weight density. So gamma is the weight density given here, weight density into volume of the bar hanging below it. So let us write it as volume. Okay, dx upon A. Now this volume can be written as area of cross section. Okay, so we can write this is area of this volume is, it's a suppose it is a cylinder. Okay, that will be area of cross section into the height. So area of cross section is A and height is x. So this much weight actually is acting on this element, and again we'll write the same thing, A. This is our d del L, that is elementary change in length of this small element. Now if we integrate, we'll find that if we integrate it, it becomes total change in length of the prismatic bar hanging under its own weight, which will be equal to, A will be getting cancelled here. I'll write it by different pen. A will be getting cancelled here. So gamma by E, and we'll integrate x square dx from 0 to L. Okay. Now, sorry, it's x dx. Gamma by E. X dx integration is x square upon 2. Which is equal to gamma by E, you can write 2E into L square. So this is the total change in length of a prismatic bar hanging under its own weight. Okay, gamma L square upon 2E, where gamma is the weight density, L is the total length of the prismatic bar, and E is the Young's modulus of elasticity. Thank you. In the last problem, we tried to analyze a situation in which a prismatic bar was hanging under its own weight, and we found the elongation. Okay, but we found that the stress in the bar at any cross section, that is sigma x, is equal to load, that is the weight of the bar acting below it, and the area of cross section at that instant. Okay, since it's a prismatic bar, so area of cross section will remain constant. Okay, now let us analyze two situations. One in which we have a cross section over here, which is called A2, and the second situation in which we have a cross section over here, it is A1 and A2. Okay, so what is the weight of the bar acting below A1? That is this much. So the stress here will be sigma x or sigma 1 acting at cross section area A1 will be equal to load, that is weight of the material here. Okay, weight at here divided by area of cross section. Now let us take one another cross section area wherein the total volume of the bar hanging below it will be this much total. Okay, now if we calculate the stress at 2, it will be equal to weight of the bar up to A2 divided by area. So obviously here we see that sigma 2 will be able greater than sigma 1. Okay, so we see that throughout length of the bar, the stress varies, okay, which increases from 0 here to maximum here. This means that the whole bar is not uniformly stressed. Okay, so we often find a problem in books that what is the cross section area at each point required to take the weight of the bar itself such that at every point the material is equally stressed. So let us find the cross section profile of this bar such that it is equally stressed throughout the length in order to optimally utilize the material. So the area of cross section of the bar should be in proportion to the load taken by that cross section. See, sigma x is equal to px upon a. So here maximum load is being taken because this whole weight is being taken by this cross section. Now at this cross section there is no load taken. So area of cross section virtually should be minimum here. So we'll draw the cross section profile roughly, keeping this equation in mind. So this cross section is almost in proportion to the load being taken by the cross section at each point. So here our problem is area of cross section of an optimum weight bar hanging under its own weight, because if we take this cross section area variation throughout the length, then we can effectively save this much material, this much 1 2 this much material we can save. Okay, so now we'll find an optimum bar hanging under its own weight such that the stress is uniform throughout the volume of the bar, for which we'll first find out what is the stress. So stress will be equal to load acting stress at, let us take a small element that is at a distance x from the bottom, and the thickness of this element is dx. So sigma at x will be equal to load acting means or weight below x divided by area of cross section. Okay, this will be the stress. Now, which here I have taken P at the bottom, because if we don't take it, the volume at the bottom will be effectively 0. So just to make it a area of cross section as A naught, we have taken this P. Okay, so load acting will be P plus gamma. Gamma is the weight density into volume hanging below it. This much volume we are talking about, which is hanging below it, because this weight only will be acting on this cross section area, and divided by AX. This is sigma. Now sigma, as we are assuming that is equal throughout the volume of the bar, we will take sigma x as sigma only. Okay, now this can be written as P plus gamma into volume, actually can be written as, see, AX. This is area of cross section into dx. Area of cross section into dx is the small volume of this element, if we consider it a straight one. Okay, so small volume of this element is AX dx. If we integrate it toward the height, that is from 0 to L or 0 to x, because we have to find out area of cross section at any x, and divide by the area of cross section at x. Okay, let us take this AX this side, and it will be AX is equal to P plus gamma AX dx 0 to x is just a repetition by sigma. We'll take a new page now. To avoid this integration sign, we'll just differentiate on both sides. So we'll be getting dAx equal to gamma ax by sigma, because p is a constant and when differentiated it becomes 0. So let us bring this ax this side. So dAx by ax will be equal to gamma by sigma into gamma by sigma. Now let us integrate it. Okay, so this will be integrated from where? A naught to ax, and this will be integrated from 0 to x dx. Okay, integration of dAx by ax is equal to log of x ln x log base ex from a naught to ax, which is equal to gamma by sigma to x. Now we'll write ln ax minus ln a naught, which is equal to gamma by sigma into x. It's a property of log that we can write it divided. So ln ax by a naught equal to gamma by sigma into x, and ax finally, that is the area of cross section at any x from the bottom, will be equal to initial area of cross section here into exponential of gamma x by sigma. So for a bar to be optimum here means that throughout the volume of the bar, when loaded under its own weight, it should have uniform or the same stress acting. Okay, so for a area of cross section of optimum weight bar hanging under its own weight at any cross section x is equal to initial area of cross section into exponential of gamma, that is weight density, into x divided by stress acting. Let us now find out the deflection in an axially loaded truss. So for example, we have taken here a truss in which two members are there, that is member AB and BC, and these are joined here by a revolute joint at point P, which doesn't restrict any rotational motion. These two links are joined at A and C by fixed support by help of a revolute joint, such that it doesn't restrict any rotational motion, and hence due to the load P there is no possibility of any bending, and finally the deflection or the case is of a axially loaded truss. Okay, otherwise if it was a fixed support, okay, what would have happened when we applied load P? It would have bent, so bending would have occurred. But since here we have revolute joints or rotational joints, it doesn't restrict any rotational motion, and whatever load is P is applied at joint B will be taken axially by these two members. Okay, let us understand this problem practically. So here if you see, initially we had this link AB and BC. When a load P is acting on it at the joint B, it will elongate and come to point BB dash. Okay, it's visible now. Links AB and BC were there. Now when load P is acting on it, the final position will be BB dash. Okay, now this is the practical thing what is happening. Theoretically, how to solve and find out the exact displacement due to the load application P from B to B dash, we will understand it. So let us start analyzing. Now we have this link AB and BC joined at point B and loaded by a load P at joint B. Okay, so we'll take this static equilibrium condition. static equilibrium condition to find out the tensile forces that these members have to is acted upon by applying a load P. Okay, so let us take this point. Here actually a load P is applied, and tensile forces in these two members will be F AB and F BC. Okay, now we see here that these two, by virtue of the geometry, will be separated by an angle beta, and here also angle will be beta only. Okay, so we'll apply the static equilibrium condition. So in the y direction we'll see that our final equation is FAB cos beta, FAB cos beta, component of this in this direction, plus FBC cos beta plus FBC cos beta. So these two acting in the opposite direction, and P is acting in this direction, which is equal to P. So this is our static equilibrium condition. Now, by virtue of geometry or symmetry, we see that FAB is equal to FBC. Okay, because these two are symmetric, and due to the load acting P here, both will be subjected to equal stress. So we can write FAB is equal to FBC is equal to P by 2 cos beta. This is equation 1, which is derived out from this static equilibrium condition. So now we got the forces acting. Okay, since these forces are acting in these links, it will lead to elongation of the links. Okay, so here it is evident, we can see that the links will elongate by this much length, that is BB2. So link AB will elongate by BB2, and link BC will elongate by BB1. So now let us find out what is BB1 and BB2. Again, by virtue of symmetry, BB1 will equal to BB2. Okay, so BB1 will be equal to BB2, which will be equal to, as we have studied, the change in length is equal to PL upon AE. We have already studied that. So what is P here? P is the load. So the load acting will be P by 2 cos beta. Okay, so this is P. Now what is L? L is, now this is H given. Okay, so length of this will be H by cos beta. So H by cos beta. PL is there. Now upon will be AE. Now what is area of cross section here? Area of cross section, A, that was already given, and E is the Young's modulus. This is our change in length of each of these members, which can be written as PH by 2AE cos square beta. Okay, so BB1, which is equal to BB2, is equal to this. Okay, so this is the change in length in each of these members. Now we see here that this link also will try to elongate to this length, and this link will also try to elongate to this length. Here comes in the concept of displacement diagrams. So what will be the final position of joint B? So let us find that out. Let us consider this as delta. Okay, let us consider this as delta and draw the displacement diagram which is required to know the final position of joint B. So we'll take a separate page now. Okay, so here we see, we'll draw now that joint B, let us suppose, is here. This is joint B. And what is the deflection in each direction? If we go in the same direction, it will be here also, isn't it? So link B or this link BC will try to elongate to BB1 and link AB will try to elongate to BB2. Okay, so these are the final lengths. Final lengths we have already calculated. Change in length we have already calculated to be delta. So we can write this as delta. We'll use a different pen. So here it will be delta. Okay, so link BC, the change in length is BB1, and in link AB the change in length is BB2. So if we open this joint here and try to rotate it to find its final position, okay, see, when it is elongated it will have another joint because it cannot join here. So let us suppose it has opened this link and try to join at the end. Okay, so since this is a straight line and if we rotate it this side, it will come perpendicular to it. Okay, so let us draw perpendicular to it, and this will also come perpendicular. Let us open this link and rotate it, okay, to find the final position of the joint. And when we do this, it will go on a circular path, isn't it? But perpendicular to it. But since this change in length is very small as compared to total link length, it will almost be a straight line. Okay, so our final length or the final position of point B will be B dash. Okay, and here the angles will be beta and beta. Now we can calculate BB dash. BB dash is equal to delta by cos beta, isn't it? This is delta and this is base and this is hypotenuse. So it will be delta by cos beta. Delta we had already calculated. Delta we had already calculated to be this. So our BB dash will be PH by 2AE cos Q beta. So the deflection in an axially loaded truss will be equal to PH by 2AE cos Q beta, and this truss will get displaced by BB dash, okay, which is equal to PH by 2AE cos Q beta. Okay. This example can be effectively illustrated with the help of this practical demonstration. If suppose my two pins act as link AB and BC, which we have already discussed. So when we apply a load P here, the tensile forces, corresponding tensile forces will act this in this link, and this when tensile forces act to the link, it will cause elongation of the members. So let us suppose the elongated, when I put this cap, the length will increase. So suppose this is the elongated length. Sorry. Suppose this is the elongated length. Okay. Now we see that this is not practically possible. So we draw this displacement diagram to know the final position of link B. Okay. So what we do is, we'll take one by one. I'll remove this. We holding it here, we open this link and try to rotate it this side. Okay. Rotation in our example, we are going to take as a straight line, because the change in length, that is elongation in the link corresponding to the initial length of the link, is very small. So this circular path will be like a straight line. And this black pen, increased length, it will not hold here, and when we want to know the final position of the joint B, we have to rotate it by holding this link here. Okay, so we'll rotate it. So again, this rotation, actually, since the change in length is very small, this rotation will be a straight line only. Okay, so this is the final position of link B. So before elongation it was ABC, now it has become AB-C. So after the increased length, the final link position will come at B dash, and B dash gives us the exact elongation in the truss, which is given by, or will be derived as PH by 2A cos Q beta.